Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Strange Internet Podcast. I'm Rob.
I'm Pat.
And today we have a very, very, very special guest, my housemate and one of my best friends, Christian. Say hi.
Hi, Christian.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm hearing the reverb from the wall coming up towards me.
Yes. So for those who don't know, I am behind the wall that Christian is currently in front of. So there's gonna be some closeness here. So yeah.
It's funny because occasionally I do hear you recording these episodes, and I'll be like, "What is he laughing at so loud?" Like
it's the episodes, it's the video game nerds that I'm yelling at. It's all of that. But yeah, so we did take another 2-week vacation, or a 1-week break, I should say, is really what it was. And if Pat would like to enlighten the audience as to why we had to take a break.
Sure, yeah. And it was something that I actually just figured out today with the help of my doctor, but I ended up getting the COVID booster, and apparently I had COVID-19 too close to the booster because I didn't know that I was infected. I took a COVID test when I felt that I had symptoms, and it came back negative, but I guess I was positive. So I had a horrible allergic reaction to the booster, the whole thing. My doctor explained it in the way of your immune system getting a little angry, and then you're adding more of it into your system. So then you're kind of doubling the anger there. But I had the whole 10 yards of it, like throat closing. Yeah, throat closing, like difficulty swallowing, pounding Benadryl, like hoping, I don't need to like go to immediate care to get an EpiPen or anything. And then just like the craziest rash from the injection site, like all down my arm, onto my palms, onto my feet. Like,
oh my God.
It was horrible. I had like my whole back was a rash, my stomach, like everything. So there was a point where my palms were so itchy, and they was like just inflamed from like my, an inch and a half down my wrist to the tip of my finger was just hives. And I've never had anything. I've never been allergic to food, never been allergic to anything in my whole life. And I have this horrible reaction on my palms, which is like unheard of. Like, when does something attack your palms, So.
And here I thought your newborn was just like sucking the life out of you.
Yeah. No, yeah, and that too. So it was just like it was, two things at once. And my wife's been a champ to take care of that. Well, I can't even do anything, I can't hold the baby while my hands are about to be itched off. So
scaling off.
Yeah. So I'm just glad that I made it through. I really didn't need anything, and it kind of just worked its way through. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I guess, be wary of the COVID booster if you have had COVID lately. So
yeah, well, congratulations on surviving. Or else this could have been a very different episode.
Right, it's been a big week. I survived, so we're here. So
damn. Yeah, I remember Rob telling me that like, he was like, "Yeah, we're skipping because I think he might be dead. I'm not sure." And like,
it sure felt like it. There were hours where I was just like, "Is this gonna progress like worse? Like, where does it go from here?" Like, I have a rash from
the best part is
the
like
base of my neck
downward.
Know. Yeah,
they literally don't know because it's new.
Right, and that was my main concern. I like sent pictures and did my little telehealth like text to my doctor, and he's like, I have never seen that. Like,
the long pause.
That's weird. Come on in for an appointment.
Good luck.
And then when I got there, he was like, "Yeah, so this has been happening a lot, and I've seen a lot of patients with it. So send me all of the photos and stuff because I want to document this and like create a case and report it to the people."
And sue? No, I'm kidding.
No, just so people are made aware, so they're not like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and get it." Because I think the whole jargon right now is just get it because it will protect you more than you not having it. But then it's like, okay, anaphylaxis is involved, so like maybe we shouldn't be telling people to go give themselves allergic reactions that could be deadly.
I am curious. Well, obviously at least here there's like a disclaimer of like, before you get the vaccination, be sure you haven't like been infected within this time period. But like, how do you, if you've never tested positive, like, how do you check?
Right. Which, like, my symptoms weren't all that crazy. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I was, like, tired, had a bit of, like, nasal congestion, chest congestion. And I was like, okay, it's not COVID. I went and got, my test and came back negative, which I kind of thought, oh, maybe I tested too early in the window or too late. And maybe it still was COVID because it was a little more vicious than a normal cold. And I already had COVID once previous. So I kind of, like, knew.
What to expect.
But it wasn't as bad of a sickness the second time around. But even still, it was like I had a mandate from school to get my booster, and there's not much you can do. They're like, oh, well, you can't graduate or you can't, register for next semester if you don't have these documents, in. So it's kind of like that catch-22 where someone's telling you to, go ahead and get it. And then the CDC is like, yeah, no, go ahead. Everyone should be getting it. And then,
that is kind of a conflicting message, because I'm definitely like pro, people getting vaccinated.
Sure.
But I don't want people to go in and get vaccinated and then almost die because of the vaccination. Like, that's
right. Or just have like a horrible, horrible week of like a reaction that could be avoided by waiting 3 more weeks, And that was I guess that's the one thing with testing is like you're not positive that you have it unless you do have this like rigorous round of testing that goes on.
The testing situation is very strange, and I feel like it's very like I don't want to say performative, but in a way it almost feels performative. Because there's a very small testing site near where we live, near the train station, and it like randomly pops up, and if you go to the company's website to see the days that they'll be there or the schedule or whatever, that site isn't even registered on their website, which is very strange.
Don't quote me on this or anything, but I'm pretty sure that there were a lot of people that like got into the game of buying COVID tests and like flipping them or getting the licensure to administer them.
These are all free.
But like as a they still like charge insurance. And
I see.
Grab the tests, and like if they can flip a profit off that or just become like, I don't know how to describe it, like a temporary licensure to help with the pandemic, and they were allowing these things to occur. I think there were a lot of people that jumped on the bandwagon of saying like, oh yeah, I can add that to my repertoire of like random shit that I do is I run this COVID testing site, and then there might be like some financial gain to it, but
so again, are we starting another company or
don't quote me on this, but I've just seen like you said, like just random test sites pop up and and then be gone, and you're like, okay, was that like the the lot of they had a bin of tests, and once they were done, that was it? I'll never see them there again.
Well, thankfully they hand out our rapid tests like they're candy, so it's no big deal now. I guess like we were at Costco today and they were just like on the shelf, $35.
Which I wonder the efficacy.
I don't think they're very good.
Compared to, because I got the whole like nasal swab at a testing site, and that came back negative.
The test and the kits are nasal swabs as well. They just use different types of machines,
right,
and different chemicals. But no, I definitely would assume the RNA tests are maybe more accurate, but like who knows? Especially with these pop-up sites, where are they going? What lab? Someone's garage?
Sure. Who knows?
Your garage?
Yeah. My main concern was just, hoping that I didn't have some adverse reaction that like kept going on, because it's like, duplicating in my system that I'm like, oh, okay, are my hands going to fall off now? And then, it continued down a bad path. So I'm glad I am back to, I would say 98%. Like here or there, I still get like a hive down the wrist or something, but it's not trying to actively kill me. So,
as far as we know, we shall see.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Thanks, everyone.
Of course. And we do have a special guest today, and honestly, I can't really remember why we have a special guest, but but Christian, was there anything that you wanted to bring to the pod? Anything that you feel people need to hear from you specifically?
What don't people need to hear from me?
Quite a few things, and there's a list that we went over before the pod.
bad.
But anyways,
no, yeah, literally before he was like, "Are you ready to record?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready." And he was like, "Okay, there's a list of things I need you to not say when we record." And I was like, what do I not need?" He's like, "I need half your vocabulary to go out the window."
Yeah.
Because
I was like,
you say the most atrocious things sometimes.
And then I told him, I was like, well, you wouldn't say things like that at work. And then he looked at me and he's like, of course I say things like that at work. And I was like, don't tell me these things. Like, just don't tell me that. Because I can't be a reference on your next resume if you're telling me things like that.
Because I mean, Robert and I will talk about some like wild out topics and just say crazy things, but we always like keep it in our little chat together, like for the most part.
Yeah. Know your audience.
Usually exploit it to other people. I'm usually like, everyone's my audience.
No, absolutely not. Not here.
Not on this pod.
Not when you sign the contract.
The NDA.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god, I'm about to get sued. No, I think the topic that we were discussing a lot about was the memefication of war, the yassification of the Ukrainian war of sorts. Just because it's been a really weird thing to watch for the most part. Especially because, I mean, this isn't like the first conflict that has kind of been TikToked or Instagram or Instagram storied or Snapchat lived kind of thing. But it is like, I would say, the first global conflict between like two huge powers, that being like the West and like Russia, where it's like you have Ukrainians recording their house getting shelled and like Russians like recording the protests that are happening in St. Petersburg and Moscow. But then you have Westerners, like usually Americans, because like Europeans, I think, are a little bit more like, oh my God, there's an actual war going on the continent again. Where you have American kids like making memes where they're like me in World War III when they ask me to like grab a gun, and it's like something stupid, it's some joke or whatever. Or the most common one I saw is an Instagram post where it's like this photo of like somebody like sitting at their work from home desk. They're on like an elevated like a rose desk with like all their plants around like this nice little house, and they're like, I can't believe we're living amongst like another global conflict again. And it's just like
oh, and for context, like Pat isn't on these platforms, like he doesn't use these platforms, so I'm assuming has no idea like really like the extent of this or really what this is.
Yeah,
like do you understand what we're talking about?
The most that I see is kind of like the videos from Reddit. I would think is the only thing I'm exposed to. I don't go on.
But like,
Instagram
what are those? What are those like?
They're very like stark, videos of people being blown up and
very different idea. So what Christian's referring to is like there's this like trend on Instagram and TikTok where people are basically using the idea, like obviously the current topic that's popular right now and will get you views no matter what, and turning it into something that's like almost like funny or like attempting to be funny or relatable or for what have you,
clickbait reasons like monetization, more views.
So it's like these videos of like, oh, me and the war, and it's like targeted at a gay audience, and it's like a gay guy and he's like kind of like Queenie in a war, and I don't know, it's just like silly things like that, and it almost removes the seriousness. But I understand that like some people need that, but I think Christian
that's
and
like the blanketing like grasp of propaganda, and it happened in different ways, but it's again for people to rationalize war in a more cartoony sense or in a memification sense now, is people trying to deal with harsh conflict in a way that's lighthearted, and it's not good. I mean, it obviously makes everyone a little less sensitive to the actual topic at hand. For me, not being exposed to that, I mean, then you just get that blanket understanding of like, here's the legality, here's the things that we should be looking at, and here's the actual events that are taking place. And I think that from a state of documentation, it's amazing that we have billions of devices now on the ground to actually get the story out, because much like Russia seeing is their information campaign around their own war is being ripped apart by actual honest stories coming out from people, where this wouldn't have happened 50 years ago. It was like everything that was framed in the media is what you saw. So them trying to say all of these things, without even looking deep into what's going on or specific stories or any of these things, you can just see this stark difference in how an information campaign is working or not working with this, memefication, or with this access to information that people have with all of these devices being, dead in the middle of the war, where they can flip on, their iPhone and videotape their house being blown up or their market being shelled, So not something that people want to, see. I mean, obviously for me, it's a little aggressive, considering that most of the war when I was growing up and that the US was engaged in, it never made it home in media in the same way, because there wasn't this use of devices by the populace in that region making it back to the US to watch. So kind of crazy times we live in.
Yeah, it's just weirder because it's mostly like Westerners, like Americans, and I guess you'd say Canadians, who are like posting the memes, kind of like just making funny jokes of the war as if it's like World War Three. So it's like, it's these people who are pretty far removed from it, because a war hasn't really occurred. A war has not occurred in our lifetime on U.S. soil ever. So there's kind of like this big disconnect between like us and the rest of the world, where, say, if you go to certain countries in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, stuff like that, where there have been active wars during their lifetime. So it's like there's that trauma and experience.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, it's just weird, I guess, to see. It's like, it is cool to see that there's all these protests in Russia and like around the world, especially from the information coming out of Ukraine, where like, yeah, like you were saying, like you're watching like your market being shelled, or like you're seeing your apartment block getting bombed. I mean, obviously you don't want it to happen, but especially in Russia, where the media campaign is completely trying to hype up the Kremlin and like its position on it, where a lot of Russian citizens are like, oh, this is actually what's happening. And obviously they don't want a war. Like a lot of them have lived through that trauma since the Soviet Union only collapsed like 30 years ago. And like a lot of those issues. But it's like Americans primarily, American kids, American like young adults who are like me getting drafted in World War III, and it's like someone fumbling with a gun, like just ooh.
It's
of course.
I can't help but laugh at those things, because it is like funny, and like, it's meant to be relatable, but then you like think about the reality of the situation, and it's just like, that's not funny. Like I don't find that funny at all, to be honest.
Yeah, like
when you finally think about like where that's coming from, it's like people are dying.
Well, yeah, and I think it's in the space within the design of military power within, a different country versus the US. Like, how often do citizens consider fighting in the US? Very limitedly. So a kid is gonna grab at that, making a meme about it, because they're relying on the funding and everything that we devote in this country to military, that would be the line of defense between them and actual conflict. Where in the Ukraine, I mean, or just in other countries, they might have a different design where citizens are actually joining the cause and jumping in, or the idea around a draft. Imagine that in the US, like that would just be such an uprising if it was required. There'd be so many people.
Oh my god, the protest! Could you imagine?
Right? Yeah.
Oh my god, it'd be like, you want me to get my gay ass in that war? I think not. You think
I mean,
like, for what? Defending what?
Yeah, literally. To do what? Cook?
So I can pay more bills? Like,
yeah. Fuck.
Like Robert and I
Okay,
actually,
you can pay for my school. Thank you.
Robert and I send those memes to each other. Only the ones where they're like talking about getting drafted. Because I'm sitting there like, imagine us getting pulled from this house, and they're like, Robert and Christian, we need you to fly to this country, and you're gonna get a gun, you're gonna get trained, and you're gonna go blah blah blah. But like, we would have been like,
Where do you think they would place us though? I think that's the real question. If we were drafted, where would we be? Obviously,
well,
like infantry is like an easy, just throw a dummy at the front line. But like elsewhere, where do you think we would like shine?
where we shine.
Yeah. I'm like, my leadership skills are really top tier. You can here are my references.
I definitely can unite a people to be like, we're all homies here. Let's just do it. Like, come on, guys. Like,
No,
Russ at
you'd
the
be like,
top.
where's HR? Because I have some complaints.
Where's HR? Because I have an issue. Like with my general is yelling at me, and if he yells at me one more time, like
He just screams at you, and you're like, "Excuse me,
that
who are
literally-
you?"
And
I
he
think
yelled
I
at me
would
back,
be
and
the
like, I don't think
person.
so.
I would probably be the person like looking the other direction
Mhm.
after hearing you be like, "All right, we're all homies. Let's jump into this." I would
You're
just
like-
like look back like, "Are we
Homie, who's
serious right
homie?
now?" What did I sign up for?
Yeah.
I definitely create camaraderie in the workspace, but it's usually camaraderie to quit. Like at some
Oh.
point when I start working somewhere,
For sure.
I bring a what is that meme where it's like I bring a very we should all quit energy to the workplace that managers
Very
don't
that.
like. That is
Very that.
I've always
That's on
wished that
brand for
like
you.
Robert for whatever reason would get a chance to actually work with me because he would see like
No.
like
I would not engage.
it's like everything is peaceful before I start the job, and then as soon as I come in, pure chaos. Like just for funsies.
Just for funsies. But no, in the military, I would really love to see myself in like offsite management role where I'm really just like kind of overseeing things. I'm not
Remote.
really like I would love a remote role.
Like
Like,
designing the spaces that we have meetings at, and
I mean, if that's a job, I'm the
getting the
federal.
equipment ready.
Yeah, I'm the official U.S. military interior designer. That'd be great.
Oh my god. You're helping to design the uniforms, like kind of pick the contractors for
Could
it.
you imagine?
Oh my
They'd
god.
be like, "You
There's
have."
actually a real job for that. I had a friend. Well, we have a mutual friend actually because I introduced you. I can't say their name on the podcast, but they had an interview with the U.S. government to like make armor and uniforms and shit for the U.S. government, and they like were offered the job. But like, could you imagine that kind of job where you're the person like making the like outfits for people like that? Not like outfits, but I mean like the like armor and shit that they're gonna be wearing.
I can imagine like the military gay who would just be like handling that job, and he's like, "All right, sweetie, this battalion gear,
They're like,
gear, this armor,
mm-mm.
that's not the look.
It's giving."
We need to switch up this whole camouflage thing because all that green that was last season. That's just not happening
Yeah.
here.
They're like, well, it's tactical. A tech to who? I don't know her.
Tack to me, tack to you.
Yeah. You need to go talk to her because
We're gonna do a nice bright red. I think we're gonna do nice warm tones.
Oh God. Yeah.
We'd be the most
They're like,
fashionable.
where's the blue and the white? Inside. It's in the lining.
We don't need the blue and white here. Like,
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and then
No.
they'd be like, "Oh well, you guys have $4 billion to do this," and you'd be like, "Okay, like no problem."
Easy.
we're
If
running
someone
out
said
of
you had $4 billion to literally do anything, I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
easy.
Right.
Because that's enough money to hire other people to figure it out.
That's
like,
right.
if I don't have the answers, I have $4 billion to figure it out. So, and if you can't figure it out at that point, you are not the one. That's all
You
I
are
have to
not
say
here
about
for
that.
that job.
If you have $4 billion and you can't fix a problem, come on. Okay, if you can't fix a problem on planet Earth, a superficial problem.
Well, you won't. Well, I was just about to say Elon needed 6 to solve world hunger, so.
Okay, well that's another 2. We can use the 4
Yeah.
to fund another 2. Let's be honest.
the 4 to fund another 2. Oh my god.
No.
You'll find
Well,
a
I
way.
mean, isn't the U.S. government like putting in like hundreds of billions of dollars for some spy plane or something, and apparently it just breaks all the time or something? Do you guys know?
Hasn't that been
I'm
happening for like
sure.
40 years?
It's been happening for like I think for like the past 20 years. They've been trying to build this like stealth fighter plane or something. And I think that was like the big issue with like military funding was that I think a lot of arguments were like, you're spending a couple $100 billion on this, trying to produce this, and every single one, the software keeps breaking.
Yeah, it's a
Like, it
bunch of
just
nerds
stops
who have
working.
too much money for an issue that needs like maybe a third of that.
That's San Francisco. That is literally.
What
The
what they
problem-
don't. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, good, because I'm very passionate. No, I was gonna say the problem is that they're missing the necessity to have a make it work moment. And yes, I quoted Tim Gunn on that. It's like they have too much at their fingertips at that point where they feel like they can just like dabble or whatever. So it's like when you feel like you have so much commodity, you're like, oh, I can just, because once their project ends, what are they used for, right? So they like need to find a way to continue their type of project. Obviously, they can get cut at some point, but if you're like the top expert in whatever blah 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 bullshit, it's like they're not gonna cut you. You just have to extend your contract. But if you have a situation where it's like it's do or die, and you have $25 million to make it happen, you're gonna figure it out, right?
A couple $100 billion though. Like,
that's too much.
Yeah,
that's too much for anything.
So they basically just made it run on Windows Vista, and they were like, "All right, we're just gonna let this shit go for a bit until they tell us we need something better."
Mm-hmm.
It's Windows XP next.
I think it all comes down to the project management that they have to deal with for that too. I mean, like you're talking about software developers creating software and it not working. It's like their main job is, okay, I'm gonna create this to function, and that's all they see. So the quality assurance and the project management just goes out the window because you have something that works in the short term really well, but then the second they're like, okay, now we want to duplicate that to other planes or other technology, they're like, wait, what? No, we can't do that. Like, no, this was just for this prototype. Like we need another $100 billion to make it so where we can transfer it around, and it be protected that other people don't steal it and everything else. So,
well, they have such a small audience to please that they can like cover up whatever they need to like make sure it gets working for whatever they specifically were asked for. And then if there's like progression that's needed, they're like, whoa. But they're not like they're not making iPhones, so you don't have like millions of people telling you what's bad with your product, right? You just have to expect the president to be like, oh sure.
Yeah, no, you don't even have 10 people telling you it's wrong. They literally just say, okay, it works or it doesn't, and then there's a multitude of problems that come up past that point. But that's why they take a fifth of our paychecks to continue that. So
please don't remind me.
It's like your audience
a fifth of our paychecks, I was instantly triggered for sure.
It's like the audience that you're trying to show that it works is like a group of like 50 to 60-ish year old men who like have no idea how their smartphones work anyway. And you want to explain to them how this fighter jet can like detect a face and be like pew pew pew. Like they're probably like, yeah, sure, whatever. It looks like.
Well, does it blow them up or not?
Does it blow them up or dip?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the most compelling thing that I've seen online is like, okay, everyone retires by age, 60, 65, 70. Like after that point, like you're kind of, on the mental decline. And it's like, okay, so the majority of our politicians are in that age range. So good. Yes, like absolutely. That's, and I don't know much about the military and their ranking or staffing that, I would like to see some more numbers on the average age or upper limit outliers, but it's definitely happening in the main function of politics. So I can only imagine that it's happening everywhere else in all the systems. So
well, that's ageist, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Who's their HR? That's what I want to know. Like
literally supposed to be us.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be us. Yeah.
But then you're like, hey, I don't think you should be able to trade stocks when you get the information 3 weeks earlier than everyone else. They're like, no, that's wrong. You don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know a damn thing.
Those things they're not.
It doesn't work that way. So you should probably just take that idea and go away with it.
Why don't you just stop asking questions? I don't know what these ideas are. You're silly.
Yeah, stupid. Oh my god, no way. The meme I was specifically thinking about, I'm sure I don't think you've probably seen it then, Pat, but it was from Madonna actually. And it was her, like with different scenes of like what was going on in Kiev and like different cities in Ukraine. And it's like a building getting shelled and it's her dancing like, stop. And it's like another building getting like pew pew pew. And she's like, the war. And it's like just her like doing Vogue and being like, stop the war in Ukraine, duh, stop the war in Ukraine. And it's like legitimately from her account. Like I thought it was like a bad edit, and I sent it to Robert, and then I was just like, "Oh wait, this is actually her account." Like
It was genuinely like watching a fever dream on my Instagram. Like I didn't understand what was going on.
I was like, "Is this me on drugs? Like, what is this? Like, am I tripping right now?" Like,
but I mean, that's helping the war effort, so you know.
Clearly,
Madonna's gonna save us. That's what's gonna happen.
You know, promoting peace, obviously.
I hope someone
making everyone trip on.
I hope he saw it.
He's like, shit, Madonna is told us to stop. Like, what will we do?
He's like, I mean, if Madonna said...
we cannot piss off the Queen of Rock. Wait, Pop. Yeah. Whatever.
Queen of Pop.
It was just like the wildest thing ever. I was sitting there like, this can't be real. There's no way somebody's PR manager would sit there and like approve like, yeah, you should post this. This is a great idea.
I think what's sad is like this has been happening for a very long time with like tons of celebrities. But I think this is the first time, at least for myself, that I've seen it. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, this is weird. Like, we're just like paying these people, or maybe not, but maybe they're just like using their publicity and like it just feels like very weird and like not compassionate at all when people
wait, but what about that stupid COVID shit where all the celebrities got online and said some dumb shit in front of a camera? That's pretty much
where they
the
were all
same.
singing.
I mean, it's very similar. Like,
yeah, they were all saying like 4 words from a song or something, and it was so like out of touch. And
no, I think I definitely
think
that the like general population didn't really vibe with that either. To be honest,
like why? It just made no sense that someone would do that.
Like, why don't you take your celebrity and like raise funds for something? I don't know.
Right? Why don't you just like? I mean, you have millions of dollars. Just give the money. Like,
you have hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, like sorry, Goop, you don't help in the good times, let alone the bad
times. Put that on a shelf.
Not Pat directly attacking Goop. I can't wait.
Sorry, whatever. I'm just
I can't wait for the papers.
I can't wait for the cease and desist you guys are about to get from Homegirl. It's just gonna be like, this podcast was talking shit. Like, get them
knock
out
on my door from a lawyer.
You all of a sudden here.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We had a slight technical issue. I'm pretty sure Gwyneth Paltrow did try to shut us down after Pat had personally attacked Goop. So, anyways,
Pat literally declared war on Goop, like, for a minute.
Yeah, Jesus, Pat can't get enough of the war.
Again.
Yeah. He's leading the charge.
Getting the Goop army ready. She's gonna go blah blah blah.
The question is Goop Russia or Ukraine in this situation? That's the big question. Definitely Russia.
I don't want to comment, and I don't want to comment for the reasons
that we just got shut down for.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in the hot seat. Like, she's just waiting for me to say one more thing.
Yeah, she's ready to smash the button.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So speaking of celebrities who are saying all sorts of things, of course I'm on Cher's Twitter because she just has something to say about every situation.
Hi everyone, this is my gay housemate. I know I didn't introduce him as such earlier, but
you had to personally list down my sexuality
attributes
so they knew. Yeah. The only attribute I have of note.
Mm-hmm. Actually, yes.
And of course, her one Leo. He's a 4 times Leo. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, she's so wild. I love the way she formats her tweets because it's like everything is a different paragraph. So like the one from 2 days is what we need, 2 exclamation point emojis. Visa and MasterCard 2 stop servicing Putin/Russia exclamation points. Are they still American flag companies or what? Exclamation point question mark emoji. And it's just like I love it because she's the one who's like writing out these tweets.
Yeah.
Like, like some celebrities, like if you go on Beyonce's, it's like very obviously she has
their
a PR
assistant.
person.
Yeah.
Like someone gave Cher the phone and was just like, say whatever you want, do whatever you
Mhm.
want.
No, Cher gave Cher the phone, and she said, "I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want."
She's like, you can't tell me anything.
Mhm.
God,
You
she's
know
like
what?
fully.
MasterCard and Visa did pull out, so maybe she did do something.
It's Cher
Thanks, Cher.
stopping this war. She
Thanks,
is
Cher.
creating economic blockade.
Cher is personally stopping this war from happening.
What was the one? What was the other one? That was really funny. She has a lot going on here. The one from a day ago was like, Putin's popularity is up in Russia. His propaganda machine is crazy. Many of us are starting to see Hitler's playbook, 1939, Poland. Plane exchange is game over. ... Bravo, American flag! Exclamation point emojis.
How
American
is this
flag.
written that you are required to read it in that way? I would love to
American
know.
flag in all capital letters has many more ways to make Putin suffer. Fucking bicep emojis.
God.
I love her because she doesn't even just put one bicep emoji. It's the white bicep emoji, and then
Mhm.
there's the brown bicep emoji.
It's
Like,
both of her backgrounds. She's showing her heritage.
she is our mixed queen. Like, she knew
Mhm.
what to say here.
She wanted to like really send the message home. She's like, "Don't forget, I am mixed. I'm not a white person."
Like, I know what's going on. Like,
Mhm.
all her tweets are wild about it. But she's been getting really political since what was it? Since Trump actually won the election. That's when she was getting real on it.
Mhm.
But she
I
is
think
like
that's when everyone got on Twitter.
like everything she types is either like the first letter is always capitalized, so it all looks like the start of another sentence, or it's
Mm.
like all capitalized. Like everything is just caps locked on homegirls tweets. I love her so much. She's so funny.
She your political queen. Cher for president.
Cher for president. I don't know what party she's going for. I would hope a far
Independent.
leftist one, but I don't know about that.
Green.
The Green Party.
Mm-hmm. She runs it. She's secretly in charge of the Green Party.
Another president who tweets ridiculous amounts.
Yeah, that's all she would do. And like an annual show.
Oh my god,
Mhm.
her State of the Union is just her performing like the entire time.
It's a
She
White
doesn't say
House
anything.
bash. No.
The White House Bowl.
Yeah, definitely the ball for the kids.
The kids and the kids who have no idea who she is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'd be like, "Yeah, we're going to Sure
Sure,
or Chair."
we had to go into a chair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this shit's been wild. I don't really like seeing a lot of it. Obviously, I don't think anybody does, but I don't know. I just hope it ends soon for the better. So obviously, we're with Ukraine, everybody.
Yeah.
If you guys know our political stance on this podcast, like that is exactly.
I don't really think it's like a question though. Like, is it? Like, is there anyone that like, apart from like the handful of other countries that have like abstained from making an opinion, but
can you imagine the immediate cancellation if like say Pat was in there like, no, Russia was right. Like,
I don't know a single American that would actually say that, to be honest. I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, you're talking about unprovoked, like I don't know. It creates precedents for other things that are not okay, like attacking critical infrastructure with technology. Like, that's not okay. Using experimental weaponry, not okay. Like, it's just crimes against humanity in every way, shape, and form that you can, use it. So,
well, you would think that, but there's a lot of. So I'm part of a lot of leftist communities on Twitter, like usually communist groups or socialist groups or something. And there's quite a few of them, not like just groups, but individual people who are like on the side of Russia in this idea of like, it's almost trying to consider them the anti-imperialist force against the imperialist West, which, like, granted, they are right that the West is quite imperialist, but I think this idea that like Russia is somehow the anti-imperialist force in this is like, that makes them right kind of thing. And there's a lot of infighting.
They're enforcing censorship in the media. I don't know how anti-imperialist they are.
Oh, some of them literally they will fucking jump through hoops for
they'll find a way to make it okay.
It's like the anti-imperialist gymnastics, because they're sitting here trying to feel like why Russia was right, like just doing a trapeze, a full floor set. to like be like Putin was doing it right, and it's just like
Can you do a back handspring on camera, please?
Oh
That
my
was
God, just,
One's
like,
just gonna clip that one motion or that one little bit there. Putin was
It's
doing
just-
it right, and that's gonna be his
doing
fame.
it right. Yeah,
his
his
cheerleaders.
fame's been the last time he's ever gonna have a job for
Yeah.
sure.
But it's like it's the wildest thing because like some of the like different groups that I follow are like talking about how it is completely the fault of NATO in the West when it's like, I mean, there's another actor here, and you guys are like treating them like they are the force that did nothing wrong, and it's a little weird. Like y'all are weird. Like to see some of these very like official groups like CPUSA and some of them being like, you can be against both. Both of them are wrong. Like we don't need to do some like this one was right, this one was wrong kind of thing. Like no, the West and Russia were all wrong. Like that's just how like I don't get why that's happening. It's kind of interesting to see because they always have infighting because they can never agree on a specific stance on a lot of things. Um, but to just see them all guns out swinging on each other online on this is like kind of nice to watch because like some of them need to get checked. It's strange.
I just feel bad for people, to be honest. Like particularly feel bad for people that like feel like other people need to hear everything that goes through their stream of consciousness as I sit here on my podcast. But like I don't know, there's just like some things that like I don't know. But obviously, I feel like freedom of speech is important, and people should be able to like say whatever they feel needs to be said. I just feel bad for people that feel like everything they say needs to be heard, because I don't think that's true. I think there needs to be more formulating what your idea is before sharing it sometimes, because I feel like some people are a little too off the cuff and they kind of just say whatever, because it's like, yes, obviously we're like, stop killing civilians in the Ukraine, but people are just saying like the wildest shit at like a million miles a minute, and I don't think people absorb enough information before regurgitating information. So there's a lot of like misinformation on social media. This happened a lot during the pandemic, like the beginning of the pandemic, but I don't know. It's just very strange to see. And it's definitely really strange when you have like coworkers on your social media, because then you really get to find out what everybody's thinking, which is very interesting. But I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure it comes from like some more internalized idea of like maybe you were never heard before, or like you feel like you were never heard. So now it's like you have a platform where nobody can stop you. So it's
Yeah.
like, there you go. I mean, even me as like I mean, I say whatever I feel sometimes. It's never so obscene that it's like, okay, this man needs to get canceled. And I
Is it
definitely,
not?
I mean, I don't know about that. Just don't post our screenshots. Like,
Exactly.
but it's like I never post something online that's too far out of reach to where it's like without maybe thinking about what it is I'm saying. And sometimes if that comes up, I always think, you know what, it's better to just not say that. Like maybe that's a bad idea.
Mhm.
Because it can get very out of hand very quickly.
Yeah, I definitely think some people like can be tone deaf with what they're posting sometimes. It's like, but then again, I feel like on the other hand, like you get people who are just reposting what they're seeing. I see a lot of people like reposting headlines and like believing that to be fact, and that's like the number one thing that I feel like I learned about media from, I want to say from my parents, but like I don't know, they watched Fox News and like that was it. But like maybe I learned it from watching, but like just not believing a headline, like not looking at a headline and being like, oh, that's fact, and just like doing my own research. But I also don't like share my political opinions very often, or like a lot of those opinions. What the fuck is this?
So literally, this is the worst thing I just saw pop up. It was because I was looking at hashtag World War III to see like what other weird memes are coming up. And I guess this is and it's like the worst things that have happened in 2022 so far, just like mixed together. NFTs and like Putin art. I don't know if you can call this art, but the first one that's pinned is
I mean,
dictator
it's an
Putin.
artistic approach. That is a
Hash,
thing.
I think it's more of a choice.
It is an artistic choice.
It says dictator Putin Malone added again with the war crimes. What is occurring in Ukraine as a result of Putin's action is unforgivable. But it's like they're selling this as an NFT. like they
Yeah,
have a Discord server for it.
everyone's just
50%
jumping
of the
on.
profits go to the Ukraine.
I
What that means, who knows? It just shows up in the Ukraine. Like,
Right.
like who's buying this though? Like who is sitting there like this needs to be on my blockchain or whatever the hell it is.
you would be surprised.
It's someone
Like-
with their parents' credit card. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I hate
They're
it
like,
because
I own this now, kind of.
the worst part is that their bio says Daddy Putin's first NFT load up. We're going to the moon and then Ukraine. And it's like, why? This is the first thing under the World War III.
I hate
hashtag.
everyone.
I was like, this is
Yeah.
the literal worst thing I've ever seen. Like,
It's really tough to actually quantify all of this because obviously
Stupidity, or
you two are bringing this into my world from like I don't see any of this garbage at any point
Mhm.
in time.
and we're just
So-
exposing you to all of it.
Yeah, so like
so sorry.
to realize that there are people who spend the majority of their free time just like scrolling through stuff or like you say regurgitating stuff like all over the internet is pretty wild to me. I mean, like I think a pretty introverted person and I don't really share my opinion. I'm not posting on these things, but you really have to question, I think, like from my perspective, like the ramifications of these things moving forward. Are there going to be,
Mhm.
videos brought up that indict people later on because they're doing dumb things online or saying these
I hope
things?
so. I really hope so.
But it's a question of like where things are in terms of global politics. Like you're talking about, what happens after this, or even if there is a peacetime, like what for you guys, what do the next like 10 years look like? I mean, it's not the same as if there were wars years ago or many years ago where there were still portions of the world that were resource heavy, that were being explored, that were being built up. We're kind of in a situation where, like, if you think about the resources that Ukraine has, that's maybe the play in why they're going after this. That it's just a shiny thing to have. That they have a lot of minerals and a lot of things that they can produce. That they would be a powerhouse. That would be better off in their country or part of their regime of sorts. So I'm just wondering what you guys think, because I really can't imagine where the world is headed in a world where this is the mainstream of like wars over resources in a way, shape, or form. Like I see people probably getting to a point where like work is very optional, where hopefully humanity gets to a point of like self-sufficiency. We're like reproducing our own food through like cell technology and growing things 24/7 using robots. And I just kind of am wondering from your perspectives where you see it going.
Christian.
Oh no, Robert, you go first. I want to hear this too.
Okay. Comes to my show.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I don't really have a speculative opinion, just because literally anything could happen. I don't think a year ago anyone that I knew was thinking like, oh yeah, there's going to be a war in a few months. So get ready. So at this point, like I would say since the beginning of the pandemic, I'm just going with the flow. I'm not going to make any speculation. I have very little hope in humanity. I dislike a lot of people. It's just very strange. Like I just don't get it at all. I'm hoping things go for the better, but like I don't know. I did not think there would be a day where I would see something like this in the news, and like such a limited reaction from so many people. Like yes, people are like verbally reacting to it, but like the physical reaction is like minor. Like, no, there's no one like stepping in to like help them out. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, if we're gonna do that, we're just gonna like let civilians get slaughtered or whatever. And like they keep talking about like war crimes, and I keep hearing like, oh, we denounce them for their war crimes, and then I'm like, okay, so you guys are just gonna sue the country of Russia, and like that's gonna be your like retribution, is suing a country, or like, you know, putting like higher tariffs or whatever in a few years. Like the fact that the solution to that is like slightly making it more difficult on them and like having to pay more money or whatever, like that's the justice that we have going on. I mean, that's our justice system, but we don't have to go down that fucking rabbit hole. But like the fact that like monetary value has any sort of like, that's the retribution to something like murder, like that just leaves very little room for me looking forward to the next 10 years.
I mean, outside of, you know, doing something that would provoke all out war, that's pretty much all we have. Like, limit their ability to do this, prevent them from doing it in the future. And, you know, that's the one thing that I don't know enough about Russia, about the economics, but obviously we've seen their
according to the
just crash,
news, basically. Yeah. I mean, obviously we don't know, but it seems
but are
like
they
they're
doing
not
this
doing great
because they're in a position where they need more, you know, where things are getting pretty dire.
What's going on behind the
scenes of all of the shroudedness that occurs there. I don't know enough about it. I'm not going to be stupid and say something, but yeah, Christian,
where do you
see the where do you see the world? Because I can't see past my, you know, the end of my nose when it comes to this stuff, because I really can't. It's just like, what happens? You know, it's like nuclear, or the other option is question mark.
I think that is the position I'm at, where I'm like, I think if it was 2 years ago and you said all of this shit was gonna happen in the next 2 years, I think I would have been like, no way, like whatever. I'm always really trying to be an optimist about this, in the sense that we have this joke where we're just like, you know, is it gonna get better? Is it really? When does it get better? Because so far it's just getting worse, and it's like, I just don't know, because it seems like so many little things are like leading up to worse things to me. Like, I already see things I don't like in the state of the world, like, which is, you know, I'm always shitting on NFTs, and the idea of like all of a sudden everything is like a like a Bitcoin, or like some sort of like weird decentralized currency that seems to like just keep destabilizing things, but everybody wants it. And then it's like you get to things where it's like massive global conflict, and there's like multiple going on for the most part. Like, you know, there's Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen and like just creating an all-out famine there, and Ukraine being attacked, and just like all these different things that are happening in the world that just seem to keep getting worse. And I'm like, when can I just relax? When can things get better? When can things just get not as bad? Like, because I feel like my main thought was like, oh, if there's one thing that would unite the entire world, it is some sort of like really difficulty that everybody goes through. Like, I do want to say,
yes. Space aliens attacking, and we had to create the global space force. And
where are the aliens? Where are the jokes? Yeah. I'm so ready for the aliens at this point. Honestly, if fucking aliens showed up tomorrow, like physical beings showed up on our planet tomorrow, like I'm on Apple News and I'm scrolling through and I see that, I would not lose it. I would not lose my shit at this point. I would be like, yep, okay, that's a thing now. Like, that's fine.
Like, we're going. Like,
and what if the fucking kicker was, if all of this was happening because of the fucking aliens, and then another war starts?
No, what I want to happen is like the aliens come down, they like land, and of course like
they come down,
and like the BBC, and they're like, oh my god, they're descending. Somebody's coming out of the ship. Something is coming out of the ship. Yeah. And it's like, it's just some sort of like alien life form just comes out. And it's like, Enough.
Yeah.
E
We
fucking
fucking
enough.
had it.
Yeah.
We have had it with you.
We've
The
been
reality
monitoring you
show's
guys
gone
for
so wrong at this point.
The
We've been
reality show
monitoring.
has.
They're like, we've been monitoring you guys for a couple hundred years now. It's a shit show. You've had a
Yeah.
couple hundred years to make things good. We gave you the tools. We dropped whatever crap you needed, and all you did was try killing each other. Helped create a major pandemic that wiped out a good chunk of your
They were
population.
hoping for an American Idol, and they got a Jersey Shore out of us. Like, that's exactly what happened. Like, it's highly entertaining, but, like, very problematic.
No, Earth is the Love is Blind of the universe. Like,
My
it is
God,
just a
it really
shit show
is.
after a shit show. Like,
It
every
really
single
is.
time. It is
Yeah. It's
Love
like
is
it's like season 1 of Love Island. That's what we have become at this point.
It's
I
what
have
is
no
it?
idea what we're talking about. by the
No.
way.
No, I do not.
No,
And I
it's
feel
real.
bad for you
It's
because
Real Housewives of Nantucket. Like, that's what it is.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, they were hoping for a Roni and they got Nantucket. That's for sure.
God. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, we're done. We're just blowing it up now. We're gonna start again
Mhm.
somewhere else. Maybe they won't. fuck it up
Honestly,
as bad.
I wouldn't blame them, and I think a lot of people would be like, "Please take me out. Please take me out."
Or at least take me with you. Like, Jesus Christ. Bye.
Yeah, I would live for that. That'd
It's
be great.
Gwyneth Paltrow like stepping out of the spaceship. Like,
Oh
we
my
tried to give you
God.
goobs.
Yeah,
Of
it's
course.
the goop ship.
The only people
Mhm.
that will survive are
She
the ones
looks
that
at
bought
Pat-
my
she goes,
vagina candles.
Not you. Not you.
You're staying here.
You can stay.
Yeah.
My God.
I don't know. I just asked a heavy question only because I'm trying to ask as many people as I know just what happens, you know.
It's
And,
like it's almost more. It's like even more intense than the where do you see yourself in like 5 years question, which is already something I don't know how to answer. Like about being like, where do you see
Yeah,
the
instead the
world?
question was, yeah,
That
where's
was
the
way
world
easier.
in 10 years?
That
I
was
don't
a way
think
easier
so.
one. Yeah.
What, the 10-year question?
Yeah, I think
No.
so.
Not at all. I have no idea what's going to happen with the world. At least with me, I have a more general idea where I want to go, but I don't know where the world wants to go.
I mean, that's
I mean, there's like 10 people that are gonna pick, so I don't know.
Well,
what you're...
we're supposed to be in Mars by then, right?
Yeah,
That's the plan. What year
plan.
is Mars supposed to happen? Next year?
I thought it was 2025.
25? Okay.
Yeah.
when is Mars supposed to happen? Like, when's the fat?
What is
happening?
Mars
Like,
happening?
trend?
What's
Right.
the Mars
When are we
party?
having
And he's like
Yeah.
asking like it's like a day on the calendar. It's gonna
He's
take
like,
like 3.5 years of flight to get
Hold
there.
on, let me add it to my calendar. Really quick.
It's like beach
It's
day.
like-
He's like, when is it happening?
When are we
'Cause
seeing
I need to
decade.
Mars?
Next decade, you'll see Mars if we're not all dead.
I already bought my festival tickets to see Grimes.
to see Grimes on Mars.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's Lady Gaga, Grimes, and like Arca. That's who's going to be on Mars. Like, it's all three of them.
100%.
They're the only ones we're getting for this.
Mhm.
I just don't know. I feel like every time I look at the news, it gets worse and worse, even though there are good things happening in the world. But it's just like there's all these people in power who are just like insane, being like, let's attack a nuclear reactor that has like helps destroy that region. Like, why not? Let's just
Yeah.
capture it.
Chill. NBD.
Like when I saw that part of the news where it was like, oh, Chernobyl has been taken over by the Russian military, I was like, it's like. But then I was like, wait, what's gonna happen to them? They're just gonna get cancer or something? Like,
Hopefully.
I just
gonna get
put up a different fence around it.
Yeah.
oh my God, no, it's gonna be like that movie, what is it, Chernobyl Diaries or something like that? Or was it just Chernobyl, where it was like the monster that's like roaming through Chernobyl while those like American
Okay,
kids are
spoiler
like,
alert, everybody. Jesus.
Whoa, whoa.
oh, this movie's from like 5 years ago. Like,
Wasn't it a TV show?
No, it was on Netflix. It was like a full movie. It was like a monster movie. It was like these like American and like Western European kids who go to Chernobyl because they're like, oh my God, I'm just gonna go rent my Airbnb at Chernobyl. Like,
This
I
sounds
wanna
like
go
a
see it.
3-star Amazon movie.
Right? It's not very good, but it's like
So
as they're
it
kind
was
of
a
walking.
3-star Amazon movie.
It's like they're being taken through by their Ukrainian tour guide, and he's just like.
Mhm.
He's like, crazy things happen here. Like the wildlife is taken over. The fucking fish have 3 heads and shit. Like, you want to do this? And they're like, yeah, it'll be fun. And he's like, all right, whatever. Y'all are paying me. Let's go. And I think at some point, I think the tour guide dies first. So they're just like, we don't know where the hell we are. Google Maps is not showing me. But just as they're going through, the monsters picking them off one by one, and like radioactive wolves and shit like that. So I was thinking that. I was thinking like, oh my god, these people, these Russian military people are gonna get picked out by the monster, like
By the
Could you
Chernobyl monster.
imagine? Could you
the
imagine
radioactive
that's what wins the war? Is a radioactive monster?
Oh my
Everyone
god!
be like, yes,
Yes, she's serving. Yes.
The whole world would be
honestly,
shocked.
I would not be shocked. Like I would be like, okay, that's reality now.
So
like that's
last
the world
week,
that we
Russia
live in.
declared war. This week, Ukraine released their Chernobyl monster.
Yeah.
Now the Chernobyl monster is going on a rampage, like,
Yes.
because they just like, as one of the military, the militants tries to like leave it, he's just like bleeding. He accidentally leaves the gate just like slightly ajar, and that's how it gets.
Not you producing a movie right
yeah,
now.
like,
Stop it.
It's Chernobyl Diaries Part 2. Like,
You're like,
Chernobyl
guys, I have a
Diary-
great. You're like, I'm just against the memefication, but I have a great movie idea, guys.
Yeah.
Chernobyl Diaries 2, the war in
Mhm.
Ukraine. Like,
Yeah. I tried watching like what is that YouTube channel that they do like all of the documentaries? They do a lot on like drugs and shit like that.
I have no idea.
Vice.
Yeah. So Vice is doing like a bunch of stuff on Ukraine right now, and like I just can't watch them. I have like such an aversion to like seeing anything like that. That's like not that Vice glamorizes anything, because they wouldn't, but it just made me think of like a moment ago of like the Netflix documentary version of that. Like, what does that look like, and like how uncomfortable is that going to make me feel? I mean, I'm still waiting on the one in the pandemic, but that has to end first.
Right. Did you see the Vice did a little bit of a documentary on, I guess I wouldn't say like documentary, but like a news report, and it was talking about all the Ukrainian citizens who are fighting against the Russian military on their own. Like, there's like, screw it, we're gonna take up arms, and it's like these old Ukrainian people just like with making Molotov cocktails, and the producer is just like, or sorry, the journalist is like, oh, what do you like? Can you tell me what you guys are doing? And they're like, well, we have guests who are coming from the country over, so I'm bartending. And I just figured that if I have to learn how to be a bartender at the age of 60, I got to make sure I produce some good drinks. And it's just him like shoving like a gasoline soaked like cloth into a bottle of like cheap vodka, and he's like, we got to have a party. We're gonna. And I'm just like, he's turning the party. Like, he's like,
wow.
Like, they just literally have a room just full of like Molotov cocktails, and he's like, everybody gets a party favor, we're gonna make it happen. And it was like, it's very serious and it's very like bleak, but it was also like the funniest intro to like a news report.
It is charming to hear someone have like a sense of humor who's in the middle of it, like to have that sense of humor, because I think that's where the desire for comedy comes from, is like that ability to like create humor or comedic effect out of something that's like otherwise very, very serious and like uncomfortable. But usually that comes years later. So but it's good to know that like someone's spirit is there,
Yeah, it's like he doesn't have this like grim outlook where he's like, shit, we're gonna get killed by the Russian army. He's like, no, we're just having a party. Like, you want to come to this tea party? You're gonna get served. This is Fred Long. Like, let's get on it. It was really kind of like funny, I guess, not necessarily, I guess, funny, I guess in a way like a dark humor kind of way to see it. It was just fun to see this old man being like, I'm a bartender at 65. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and I think it plays into like their national pride versus like something that we're used to. Like, yeah, everyone like gets out and parties.
Gonna mention that
they're like, no, this is like what we have. Like, we're just gonna fight for it, and if we don't win, we don't win. But like, we're not gonna give it up. Like, the U.S. is not like that. People are like...
I was thinking about that when we were talking about it earlier. Is like, could you like when we were talking about getting drafted? Like, could you imagine anybody? Not okay. There are definitely people, but like, let's talk about California. There's just so many. There's so many more people here that probably wouldn't be in the same mindset of like, this is my country, I'm going to defend it. Whereas there's so much reporting happening in Ukraine of people bearing arms and defending their home,
I think people would. I mean,
I
I
think
think
people
people would
would, but I
when
don't
it's in their
think,
face, but like
yeah,
not in the same notion. Like
if it's on
here,
like a
it'd be
different
like
coast or in a
my
different state, they
personal
wouldn't.
property for sure.
Yeah, but if they like show up outside your door, yes, I definitely think people
Yeah.
would.
Oh yeah, like
Um,
I couldn't see it for myself. I would serve crack before I served this country. Like I'm not doing it under like an American flag kind of thing. I think I would do it for like
Like your
California
community.
or
Yeah.
like my community. Like if someone was stepping up to Oakland, like some foreign army, and was just like, "This is ours now," I'd be like, "Bitch, no, it's not." Blah blah blah. Like I don't know. Like I couldn't see a lot of people in the Bay Area specifically being like, "I'm gonna fight for America." I mean, that's what we got the South for. Like
could I
in the
ask,
Midwest.
the descent of nationalism is like kind of a very common thing in the Bay Area, and like I don't want to say all of California. It's such a big place, but like in a lot of bigger cities in California, like a lot of people do have a dissent to from nationalism, and like I never really fully understood the entirety of it. I understand an aspect of it of like there are people who are unhappy with how like the government information is and how that affects them. That is very understandable to me, but I've never understood the like anti-flag thing. That's something that because it never really makes sense to me when people are like, "Oh, I hate being an American." Can I ask that? Like, is that an appropriate question to like, Christian? Could you inform me?
Oh yeah. Me being like I'm the expert on this topic.
Well, no, but
Uh,
like I know you. I mean, we talked about how you're a part of like farther leftist communities. It's and I identify as definitely more on the left side, but like I'm not like as far left as it gets. Like I'm not one of those. Like I'm a lot more neutral than a lot of people around me. So I feel like you might have more perspective on that.
yeah, I think it's primarily just because like I it is generally seen as like a big more class issue. Like it's very obvious that America doesn't care. It at least within I would say especially leftist communities, it's the American establishment does not care about the communities that essentially pay for them, I guess you would say. Like the people, their taxpayers, anything. And they especially, the United States makes it very obvious to us that they don't care about brown people. They don't care about black people. They don't care about Asian people. They don't care about the queers. They don't care about poor people, any of that. So, and it's just like the idea of America as an entity isn't right. There's also obviously the ideas of genocide against Native Americans and like the way that the U.S. is considered like the U.S. police, the like world police, and just this general idea of what is the word called? I don't know why I'm blanking on the term, but basically just this idea. Oh, the United States is like a settler colony, which is this idea that this outside force has completely displaced the native population and just taken it as their own, as if they are the informant. But that's a very big other topic where you could say more than half the countries in the world shouldn't exist in the way that this idea that the United States shouldn't exist as an entity. So it's kind of like that defiance. But I think the idea that it is primarily in larger communities, like larger cities, when you think about SF or LA, I think especially in California, it's because you get towards a more liberal kind of ideology where um God, I don't know. I wouldn't say these people necessarily hate America, but they don't like the way it runs. But when you get towards more leftist communities that are more like what identifies more like communist or anarchist or socialist, where they're like, no, the United States should not exist as an entity. There's a much bigger idea to this, and that it shouldn't be the current establishment that gets to run everything.
But
Uh,
I see that's where my like misunderstanding comes from, because when I talk about like being an American and being, you know, one of the American people, like when I talk about America and the United States of America, I don't when I talk about, how I feel about it as a whole, I don't really think of like, oh, the government. Like that's not my opinion on America. My opinion on America is the people that live here in its entirety, and like what that represents. So when I hear people speak about America like, oh, I hate being an American, it's like, from me, my perspective, obviously, everyone has a different one, but like from my perspective, I feel like people just hate the people that are in it. And that's confusing to me because I'm not the type of person to be like, well, then go somewhere else. Like that doesn't make sense either. But it's just, it is a confusing, like conflicting idea in my head of like, what are they talking about? And my worry is that when people say they hate America and they hate, what it represents, and they hate the flag, I'm worried that they only mean the government, because the government's a portion of that, but the people are the bigger portion of that, in my opinion. And that's why I always feel bad for people who feel that way, because I love so many, like the idea of so many people in this country, and like the government is a whole other topic, but at the end of the day, the people who created the government were the people that lived here. And so now we are the people that lived here. So that's the American flag to me. That's what that represents to me, is the people that are here and the people that I love and I care about, and the people that if I ever had to defend X, Y, and Z, it would be in the name of the people that I love. And for me, that is a part of my country. Like, when I say the United States, I think of family. I understand how that could definitely be different to, people who are either first generation or immigrants or whatever. But to me, that's the perspective that I have on that, is like, when I hear the United States of America, I think of my family, because that's where we live. If I was, I don't know, fucking French, and and we lived there, regardless of our ethnicity or our background or whatever. Like, if we lived there and our family was living there, and I said I love France, it would be that. It would be, those are the people that I think about when I think of that country. And
Yeah.
otherwise, it's like, I don't know what would happen if this didn't exist suddenly.
I think it's just the idea of like what America has always represented that people don't like. And a lot of that is kind of like, what was this country built on? The backs of slaves, and like the murder of indigenous people, and like who always got the short end of the stick and got treated like they didn't mean anything was all the brown, black, Asian, native peoples who like were displaced or killed or put into concentration camps and stuff. And it does really kind of depend on the perspective, because I think it's more, when people say I hate America, it's primarily the idea of what it represents and like what it was founded on and what it continues to represent. Is like, I think especially if I was supposed to be personally, to me, it's this idea of imperialism where the US can kind of just decide what goes on. The US can murder black people on the street and like allow their cops to like shoot people who were selling cigarettes trying to make ends meet, or like not allow refugees from Afghanistan and Iraq and Yemen to come in because they consider them terrorists, even though the United States in its founding came in and like murdered all these native peoples and stuff. And I think that's why people say like, that's what I hate. That's why I hate America. But I think it's also just a difference of perspective, because it's like, for brown and black people, that's really how a lot of us feel. We're like, we hate that. Like, we hate that. Like, it wasn't our choice to be born here. So that's why it's always weird when people just say like, well, if you hate America, why don't you just go? And it's like, well, where am I supposed to go?
Yeah, that's definitely not
Yeah.
the correct. That is also like a huge issue. Like, when I hear that, I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, that literally makes no sense.
And it's like, yeah, I hate America and what it stands for, but what I want is not to just leave it and just let it exist as it does with all the problems it does. I want to essentially destroy it and rebuild in that way. Like, that's my perspective, like what needs to be done. Like, reform isn't working. It is very clear that the current establishment and like this two-party system does not work. I think you honestly just need to get rid of it and start from scratch. Like, and that is what I think. That's why I feel like what people, basing off your point, think is like, I hate America as its entity and like what it is. I love the people, for the most part, most of the people, not, I mean, obviously there's no love for like racists and like Ku Klux Klan members and Nazis and like homophobes and stuff like that. But it's like, I think the people should have that right to exist, but it shouldn't be at the expense of other people within it. So it's kind of like, destroy it and rebuild. But the flag is like used as like a symbol of that, where like people burn the flag, and it's, especially when you see this in other countries, it's usually from people who have been killed or displaced at the hands of like the American military complex. So you'll see people from Afghanistan or Iraq who are like burning the flag, and it's so weird because you'll see like people going like, like, why would they do that? We came in and liberated them. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. You just like killed their cousins in like their village and shit, like with an airstrike. Like, of
Right.
course they hate this country. But that's what a lot of, I would say, a lot of foreigners say too. They're like, we don't necessarily hate the people of America. We hate your government and what your country stands for. This idea that we can decide everything. I mean, an interesting perspective that's come out of this recently was, all the economic blockade that the U.S. is putting on Russia, with like basically keeping all companies worldwide from being able to work with Russia and creating sanctions and all this stuff. And while I guess in some way you could say that it is working in order to like try and mitigate the war effort, or at least like at some point Russia's going to need to give up because they're going to run out of money. Um, there's also just this idea that essentially one country can push all these other countries to bully another country out of the entire world system, like cutting them out of the worldwide banking system, cutting them out of any sort of trade, cutting them out of the economic systems, because the United States is the one who pretty much owns all these payment processors like Visa, MasterCard. They can like just not buy their oil and gas, which is their main export. They can pretty much decide the fate of a country um, anytime that they would want. And obviously, these are like crazy circumstances where it's like, yes, this country is like invading another smaller country that is more pro-West, but it's like it's kind of a scary thought in a way to think that like if for whatever reason you don't fall within that world system and you're a country that is pretty vital to a lot of other economies, you can just get cut off immediately, kind of thing.
Well, I think there are very specific circumstances where that would happen. And we're seeing the reality of that. But yeah, I mean, this world runs on agreements, business runs on agreements. And I think that's something that a lot of people might not understand is a country has to see eye to eye on a majority of things for them to operate together. And there are countries that we as a country do not recognize as existing.
Mhm.
Like there are countries that on a theoretically on a map don't exist in the United States, and vice versa. There are plenty of situations like that across the world. Every country recognizes its own grouping of countries. So anyways, my point is everything that we do, business, work, interrelations with other countries, it's all based on agreements. And if you can't uphold your end of the stick, that's going to be revoked. So, the US has denounced Russia for committing war crimes and attacking another country and crimes against humanity. So for us, from our political perspective as a country, the United States, they're not holding up their end of the stick, so we're revoking all of their benefits of being our friends, essentially. And that's just how it is. If we started going to war with another country, that would probably happen to us too. Thankfully, the United States has so many things allotted to it that it would be a slightly different situation, but we would lose out on a lot of things. I mean, we gain, fuel and food and fucking all of Amazon from other countries that that would all go away for us too, and we would be in the same situation if we declared war. So it's kind of just a thing, and that's why being a superpower is so important, because you don't want to be that tiny country of like, I don't know, Moldova is a great example of like having much smaller import export situation and not having as much, self-sustaining stuff. Sorry, Moldova, I don't really know anything about you. I'm not attacking you. I'm just thinking of a physically smaller country, so who knows? But you guys are great. I love you. But no, my point is, it's all based on agreements, and like it is scary to think that you can just like have your shit turned upside down like that, because essentially that's what's happening to Russia, is like their entire economy is collapsing right now. And then meanwhile, everyone's complaining here about gas prices. So
Yeah.
perspective, I guess.
Well, but like, but that's another thing is like we did go to war with another country, and we nothing happened to us as like anything being cut off. And I guess the example I'm giving is primarily Afghanistan, like the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. We did go to war with these countries and essentially invaded and planted our military there, but nothing really happened to us. Like we didn't get any of the bad part of it. The Iraqi people and the Afghan people did, and to an extent, like other people around the region, like Pakistan and stuff like that. So it's like as an economic superpower, the problem that I see especially with like incorporating sanction is one, it only really affects the people at the bottom, like the common people who now can't use their cards. Can't, the ruble has fallen by like over 40-ish% plus, probably more. And it's like now those people have like way less buying power and just trying to like get the basic goods like bread and milk, eggs, like the basic necessities. Um, and it's like that makes it so much harder on them. But it's like basically one country decided that, all right, we're not going to trade anything with you. And yeah, like in the long term, that might actually be able to mitigate the war effort and like be able to like have Russia be like, okay, we don't have any more money, so we can't do this. But I think it should be very concerning to be like this one economic superpower, political, economic, socio superpower should be able to essentially run things in that way. But then there's not really any real repercussions for the US in that case, because we kind of just like, what, we get, I don't know, economically blockaded by Cuba, who we've been economically blockading since like the 40s or 60s or something, since the Cuban Revolution. And it's like, well, it's not going to do much because we're the biggest power. Plus, it's like most of our money is actually pretty self-sufficient. Like we don't really make majority of the U.S. economy doesn't thrive mostly on exports and
Mhm.
imports. It's pretty self-sustaining in the way that we produce pretty much anything you can need and want in some capacity, and the American people can buy it, and then it kind of just becomes cyclical in that way.
I mean, there's no alternative. I'm just going to say that. I mean,
Mhm.
because of the course of time, because of human nature. I mean, like, as much as you can say this shouldn't exist, there's nothing that's going to stop it. I
Mhm.
mean, one superpower will win out. I mean, or
That's true.
they'll just go to war in order
It would
to
just
be
be
the
someone
winner.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's how,
I mean, there's good things
unfortunately, how it works.
and there's good things and bad things about it and drawbacks we can complain about, but there's a lot of good things that obviously we haven't talked about. But that's the thing. It's kind of like when the problems are staring you in the face. I think that rather than scrap the system and rebuild, it would be nicer to have a faster legal system.
Mhm.
Not living under laws that were built 100 years ago would be really nice. Or
Hmm.
um, standardizing the way that we move so quickly with technology now. Like, why aren't those things keeping up? um, because the people and the laws are a massive problem where term limits are an issue, and those decisions just are perpetuated over time, where the same people that were barring access or doing these things for a grudge or for some reason 30 years ago are still doing them today because they're still holding that seat of power, whether they do it economically or physically by holding office. It's just really frustrating, and there's not really anything you can do as a citizen. So I could understand where you would be frustrated, as much as you
Mhm.
want to call your local lawmaker and really talk to them about your issues. It doesn't really go far as an individual. So my definition of the country is very different, coming from a state from the Midwest and lived in the Midwest my whole life. um, there are many things that I hold dear to my heart about the people and the things in this country, but I do think that there's a lot that can be done, and the whole idea of the country being built on blood and slavery, we're in that space where the economics have just replaced that. Sure, we're not doing it physically anymore, but you know there's plenty of people that are making the money and doing the things for other people to enjoy all the luxuries in the world without any oversight or any adjustment, and I think that's horribly wrong. But there's so much that can be done. But again, we're in this place of there's so much going wrong in spaces that no one can control that it's really tough to think about those things in the day to day, because you have the pandemic in your face, and there will be a point where this settles. So that was my main question that now has gone a long time in response was, where do you see things, only because it's important. And I think people should be thinking about it, that, if they want the world to be a certain way, that we have to craft it, and we have to have these kind of tough conversations and really get ideas down and just do the things that, can help in the day to day. But that's kind of my 2 cents. There's way longer discussion. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point.
Well, I
I was gonna
appreciate
say,
everybody's perspectives for sure. I mean, I think having Christian on today added like an embellishment and another perspective, which I think we were very much looking forward to. So to not end on such a heavy note.
This got a lot deeper than I was
It's been a
expecting
heavy
it to
one.
today.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm super down for deeper conversation. But
It went from
so
aliens to this.
I mean, we could go back to aliens. No, to end on a slightly lighter note, I'd love to know if there's one thing that you could see happen over the next 10 years to kind of, jump off of that topic. There's one thing that you would love to see for the better. What would that be? And we can start with Pat.
One thing for the better. I would want technology to replace the need for people to have to do things that just suck in reality. like going through the throes of just like subsistence. Like I would like to see that deleted, and then you could really see humanity flourish in some way. So many people are hamstrung by the garbage day-to-day things they need to do just to scrape by, that it would be nice to know where people's creativity is, or where what can be invented and what can be done and created when you don't have those things just holding everyone back. So we'll see.
Christian?
Ooh, I think it kind of builds off that. Honestly, I'm really excited for I think that since the pandemic kind of like brought this idea of like remote work can be permanent, to the idea, and like just the idea of like the great resignation and people quitting their shitty jobs and like demanding more. I think I'm excited for the idea of like all these companies unionizing and the people getting the benefits they deserve and the pay they deserve. Because what was it just recently? What was it? A large part of Starbucks in the Northeast, I believe, unionized. A bunch of other companies are forcing unionization. A lot of tech companies, Apple, Google, and Twitter, and all them, while they are announcing return to office work, a lot of their employees are like being very vocal with like, no, we don't want to go back to the office. Like, we want to work from wherever we want, live wherever
Thank
we want, that kind of
God.
thing, right?
So to encapsulate that, you would like to see either a lot more remote or a lot more of unionization?
I'm excited for the move towards workers' rights and like unionization and like the voices of kind of like the working class to be, you know, essentially to be heard, way more heard than they have in, God, my lifetime.
Forever.
Yeah, and forever. Like to see people like get the benefits that they want and like the pay that they want and be able to demand that and to be able to negotiate that and get what they feel like is fair. I feel like that's been pushing in the past like year or two, especially, and it's just been really nice to see. I can't wait for like, but like the Starbucks that's like in downtown Oakland to like unionize at some point, because I'm sure they're really scared of them doing that.
Probably. And for myself, I think just something that really affects me on like a everyday basis, but also like a greater life basis, is like I would love to see transportation over the next 10 years like completely overly develop. I personally don't drive. I don't want to have to buy a car. I don't want to have to, rely on a gas guzzling vehicle or anything like that. I definitely can assume that we're going to see a lot more electric vehicles. Where Christian and I live, it's very, very, very common. I would say even more so than I remember in San Francisco. Is just like so many people out here have electric vehicles, which is something really amazing to see, especially as gas prices are, skyrocketing. But I would love to see a lot more public transportation, a lot more train usage, some sort of like electric plane in the regular being used for like commercial flights. I think that would be super amazing. And most importantly, because of all of this advancement, I would love to see faster transportation. I would love to have, a maglev train to LA in like, what is it, 30 minutes, an hour from San Francisco? Like that would be amazing. Is that going to happen in 10 years? I don't know. But if there's something that I really want to see, it's like major advancements in transportation. That would be really amazing. Yeah.
Robert says all of this as he gets mail like weekly for Maserati loans, like specifically.
The Chase wants me to buy a Maserati so bad, and they just don't understand that I'm not interested. This has been happening for years too.
Literally since he moved into the house, we would get mail and it would be like a Chase thing saying like your auto loan for the new Maserati, whatever model it is, I forgot which one. It's like we will approve you right now. And he just looks at me and he's like, I don't even have a license. I don't even have an ID.
I literally don't have a driver's license, and the amount of like car loans I get in the mail is kind of insane. Know your audience. I think that's the point.
Oh my God, no way. That was how I discovered you didn't even have an ID. You were like, I don't even have an ID. And I was like, what do you?
No, I have an ID. I just don't have a driver's license.
Yeah.
Well, I also don't have a California ID, but that's another story. We don't have to.
You have
we don't have to dive
passport,
into
though.
I have a passport. Yeah, I have federal identification.
That's
I have
what
the
most
superior
people have, like,
identification.
In other countries, that's what most people use. It's just passport.
Every
Yeah, but
time
here
we
everybody
go
thinks
to,
that's weird.
Every time we go to a bar and he has to flash his passport, and they're like, "Is this fake?" And we're just like, "I'm like, can you just? The DMV is literally down the street. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just too lazy. I have all the documents printed. I'm just too lazy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christian. We very much appreciate your time.
Yes.
Thank you for having me
very
on.
much.
Yeah, of course. Are you excited
This is
for
so-
everyone to hear you and hear your voice and your
I'm not.
perspectives?
Oh God, I don't even want to hear my own voice on this. Like,
Well, you're probably going to listen to the episodes, so.
oh yeah, I'm gonna be everybody.
But that has been our lovely bi-weekly check-in.
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't come down with something for next
Yes,
week.
hopefully we should be returning to the planned schedule of a weekly episode. But thank you so much for joining us on The Strange Internet. You can join us on social media at The Strange Internet Podcast on Instagram. There it'll have our link tree to our YouTube, all of our streaming links, and then we also have a public Discord. So if you ever want to join the Discord, submit an idea, chat with us, chat about something that we talked about on the podcast, you're more than welcome to. We'd love to have more involvement on the Discord. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm Rob.
I'm Pat.
And
Nice.
all right, have a good week, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.